Council meeting. Before Mayor Parker calls the meeting to order, we ask that you please turn off electronic devices. For those of you who have requested to speak, there are two podiums in the chambers. The podium in the back is for individuals with mobility concerns. We ask all other speakers to step forward to the front podium. Each podium has a countdown clock located to the speaker's right that will indicate how much time is remaining. A bell will sound when you have 30 seconds left. Before you begin your comments, please state your name. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to your Fort Worth City Council chamber. I'll call us to order.
First item on the agenda, Mayor, is M&C 23-0786.
Go ahead, David, please.
Mayor, would you like me to summarize the actions here? I think that'll help.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So for this part on the budget, we have 8 action items and a public hearing. The first 2 M&Cs will be related to water and sewer rates. Then we will have the public hearing on the proposed 2023 tax rate. Then we will do a number of ordinances. The first ordinance is on fees. The second ordinance is on the budget ordinance. And for the budget ordinance, I'll point out there's 2 number changes than what you have had in your book or in prior presentations, that they don't reflect increased public spending. It's how we're showing the Environmental Services Department. So the general fund will be a little bit higher. Those expenditures are funded from a transfer from the solid waste fund. The second item is in our fiduciary fund. The Rock Creek PID will show a higher number for the debt service, and that's being paid for by assessments with the Rock Creek PID. The next ordinance is the ordinance on the property tax rate. That's an ordinance required through the tax code. That will require 7 votes to pass that ordinance. Then we do a resolution on the property tax rate, and that's also required by state law. So there's 2 related to the property tax rate. And then the final 2 M&Cs relate to civil service. There's 1 for fire and 1 for police. Those are the 8 actions. And then we have the public hearing on the tax rate.
Thank you, David. Questions from council for David? Anybody? We're good. Thank you. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, the first item is M&C 23-0786.
So I can entertain a motion on this, council. Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion, council? Please vote. I've got 2 ayes from Councilmember Beck and from Councilmember Bivens. Motion carries.
Next item is M&C 23-0785.
We do have 1 speaker on this item, council. Our first speaker is David Martinez. Is David here? No? If David's not here, council, I can entertain a motion on 23-0785.
Move for approval.
I've got a motion and clarification from Councilmember Crane. Yes, that's correct. It involves wastewater. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is a public hearing. Conduct a public hearing on the proposed 2023 tax rate. Report of city staff by Ashley Clement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ashley Clement. I'm an Assistant Finance Director with the Fort Worth Lab. I'll be presenting information on the recommended property tax rate for the fiscal year 2024. The recommended property tax rate for fiscal year 2024 is 0.6725 cents per $100 valuation. This is a 4-cent reduction from the fiscal year 23 adopted rate of 0.7125 cents. Each year, the recommended property tax rate is calculated once the city receives its certified appraisal values of real property from the appraisal districts. For fiscal year '24, the total net taxable value for the city increased 15.6% over the fiscal year '23 value to $115.7 billion. Of that increase, new construction added $3.2 billion in value to the tax roll, with the other $12.4 billion coming from reappraised values on existing properties. Based on the $115 billion valuation and the recommended tax rate of 0.6725 cents, the city expects to collect a little over $735 million in property tax revenue. This revenue supports the city's general debt obligations and the general fund. The property tax rate of 0.6725 cents per 100 valuation is allocated between operations and maintenance, or O&M, and debt. The debt portion is anticipated to meet the city's general debt obligations, which includes the bonds that have been issued for the propositions approved by our voters. The fiscal year '24 recommended debt rate remains the same as fiscal year '23 at 0.1475 cents. The portion for operations and maintenance is the largest funding source for the general fund, which houses a significant portion of the operating activity for the city. The recommended O&M rate is 0.5250 cents. Within that O&M rate, the city allocates a portion to cash fund capital infrastructure maintenance. This is often referred to as PAYGO. For '24, that allocation remains at 7 cents. The remaining portion of 0.4550 cents is dedicated to the general fund, which is the city's largest operating fund. The total reduction of 4 cents in the property tax rate is recognized in this portion of the rate. This is the largest tax reduction in a decade, as the city is committed to lowering the tax rate. I'd like to take a brief moment to retouch on another important action that Mayor and Council has already taken for the upcoming fiscal year. In June, Council approved an increase to the over 65 and disabled residential homestead exemption. This pushed the exemption from $40,000 to $60,000. This exemption is closely aligned with our property tax rate reduction and offers property tax relief to our most vulnerable. This, in conjunction with reducing the property tax rate by 4 cents, showcases the city's commitment to lower the property tax burden. To date, the city has hosted 16 public engagement meetings, held 3 budget work sessions with City Council, and we've conducted a public hearing on the recommended budget last week. This public hearing on the tax rate is the next step in the budget process before Council is presented with the opportunity to vote on the aforementioned items that David included in the beginning on ordinances and resolutions on today's agenda to adopt the FY24 recommended budget and tax rate of 0.6725 cents per 100 valuation. Thank you for your time and attention, and a special thanks to everyone who's engaged and contributed this budget season.
Thank you, Ashley. Council, we have a few speakers on this item. Our first speaker will be Rose Baker, followed by Al Alou.
Good evening, members of the Fort Worth City Council. My name is Rose Baker. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I am more than a little concerned about the property taxes that are crippling many of my friends in Fort Worth residents. It has come to my attention that Tarrant County, South Lake Carroll ISD, Keller ISD, Fort Worth ISD, and now Tarrant County College have adopted a no new revenue rate, or a below no new revenue rate for our property taxes, to help the people to protect their homes from foreclosure. Many of my friends, and that includes me, are on fixed incomes. And paying more for property taxes is putting a strain on our daily living expenses, especially since our economy is in such a crisis right now. It seems to many that the elected officials, which include you, are trying to drive them into bankruptcy and the loss of their homes. We know that a decrease in tax rate is not a decrease in taxes. My neighbors are reporting outrageous appraisal rates that just keep going higher and higher. A decrease in the tax rate will not lower the amount of money we have to pay. So to pay the same or less than last year, we have to have a no new revenue rate. When you ran for office with a promise to lower taxes, that is exactly what we expected you to do. We, the people, are tired of voting for politicians who say one thing and do another. We are going to vote out those who don't really care about or respect the people of Fort Worth. I hope that you will prove to us that you do care about the people of Fort Worth, and you will do what you promised when we elected you. Thank you for your time. And I have copies of my comments for the board, for the council.
Thanks, Ms. Baker. If you'll hand those to Mr. Gonzalez, he'll make sure we all have them. Our next speaker is Al Alou, followed by Carlos Tercios.
Good evening, Mayor Parker, City Council members. Tonight, I would like to address the property tax issue. From what I understand, the council members and mayor will be voting on tax rate of the property taxes. It is proposed that you want to lower the rate to 0.6725 from 0.7125. As great as that may sound, we all know it's not really going to lower your property taxes. It's actually going to raise your property taxes. On a $400,000 home, it will still increase your taxes by $250 a year, and every year thereafter. The proposed tax rate reduction is just a play on words. It's typical politician talk. You really want to help the people you serve, you should adopt the no new tax revenue rate of 0.6353. Other surrounding entities have adopted the new revenue rate and even below new revenue rate, like the City of Southlake, City of Colleyville, City of Keller, the JPS, Tarrant County College Board, Keller ISD, Grapevine ISD, and even Tarrant County has adopted a below new revenue rate. Now, I'm not sure if pigs are flying or hell froze over, but even Fort Worth ISD has adopted a below no new tax revenue rate. So the question is, how do we pay for these awesome things that Mr. Cook put on the budget? Well, I think the first thing our elected officials should do is go tell Mr. Cook to go back to the drawing board and go find the wasteful spending that is happening in our city. Why is it year after year, Mr. Cook, our city manager, gets carte blanche on taxpayers' money? He has no skin in the game. His salary is 10 times that of city council, and our property taxes continue to go up year after year. He needs to be held accountable, and that's your job. City council, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Mr. Cook makes over $30,000 a month. Let that sink in just for a little bit. City council needs to do the right thing when it comes to property taxes. You cannot expect the people to continue to make the same number of bricks with less straw. This is a reference to Exodus 5:6, where Pharaoh ordered his taskmasters to take away the straw and let the people go find their own straw. You're making it harder for us to afford our homes. And regarding those who rent, they're also burdened by this. As a landlord and property manager of over 300 properties, when property taxes go up, so does the rent. Your words need to be your words. Don't promise the people in your district tax relief when it really isn't. Your leaders up there, you were elected to be representations for the people who elected you. Give the significant tax relief to the people in your district and be the hero of 2024. Mr. Blaylock and Mr. Landorf, thank you for your truth.
Our next speaker is Carlos Tercios. Is Carlos here? Our next speaker is Adrian Smith by phone, followed by Karen Wiseman.
Mr. Smith?
Adrian Smith, I am one. Adrian Smith, I am one with the people, to the mayor and to the city council. I don't know if you don't care or you just don't get it, but you know what? I will select both options. You all are detached from the realities as relates to the livelihoods of the collective will of the people of Fort Worth. Yet here we are again with your rubber stamping initiatives, pushing things forward under the guise of falsehoods for the purpose of serving yourselves. Be clear and understand one thing. 2025 or before will start the undoing of your positions as relates to council. Now, if this does not apply to you for the individuals who sit amongst that dais, then separate yourselves from the ones who are making these ill-advised decisions as it relates to the city. I stand with the first speaker, and I think she'll make an excellent mayor because what she spoke to, you all have allowed to just become something of people just talking. Now, 2021, we were under pandemic restrictions, COVID, quote unquote, protocol, shutdown. There was no movement within the city, if any at all. So how do we get from 2021 to no movement to 2022 where you outspent yourselves, because that's what you did, because with your rubber stamping initiatives, we know one such example is City Hall, the new City Hall, 50 million over budget, and countless other things. And let's not forget about the 170 plus million in American Rescue Act COVID relief funds that you all just blew in the wind for your pet projects or to ensure your benefactors receive something favorable because of how they decided to. I should be in that city council chambers right now before you, but I'm not because you all trespassed me. But guess what? I'm still standing, I'm still speaking, and I will not stop. To the collective will of the people that stir, do not stop. Let's vote them out.
Our next speaker is Karen Wiseman, followed by Colby Shellhammer.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for your service. My name is Karen Wiseman, and I live with my husband in a home that we own. We've seen the appraised value of our home increase between 10% and 13% every year for the last 10 years. And that's after I fight it with TAD. So in the last 10 years, the appraised value of our home has risen 123%. It's more than doubled. I have a problem with TAD, and this year I wasn't able to fight the appraised value because they had some computer issues. They told me I had a phone hearing, but then at the last minute they changed it to in person, and I had already uploaded all my documents and I couldn't get there in time, so I had to forfeit. But I know they're working on those issues. So my monthly tax bill is now larger than the prior mortgage on our home. And I'm just here to humbly request that the city tax rate be set below the no new tax rate. My city taxes go up every year along with the other taxes. The county, Fort Worth ISD, and other surrounding cities have been able to offer their citizens tax relief this year. And I would really like to see the city of Fort Worth do the same. However, I don't want to see any cuts in fire or police, but I do feel there are some other areas that could be cut if we took a hard look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiseman. Our next speaker is Colby Shellhammer, followed by Manuel Mata.
Mayor, we called 3 times and there was no answer.
Colby's not here in the audience, correct? Okay. Next speaker is Manuel Mata. Is Manuel here? There he is. Manuel will be followed by Amy Super.
Hello, my name is Manuel Mata, and I'm in District 9. And the only thing that I have a problem with is the 96 million you're gonna give the police, right? And one is because I've been trying to get an answer to this question. How much do the surrounding counties pay Fort Worth Police Department to train in the Felix Street Center? You know, because surrounding counties come and get trained in this facility and they get paid. The police does, right? And there's other places that this money could go to, like community centers, after-school programs, libraries that y'all keep closing down and neighborhoods that need them, because if y'all don't pay attention, the reading, math, and the school for children of that age in those areas is at the lowest it's ever been, right? So if y'all really want to show the community that y'all care about them, right? I'm not saying that don't give money to the police, right? Even though y'all make sure that they have enough, right? Y'all even went and gave them money to recruit people to come hire and get work by them. But the thing that's not being addressed, there's a shortage of officers coming. And what y'all proposing are like before measures. You know what I'm saying? Like before y'all have a shortage or afterwards, not during. You know, all these money could go to the communities that are, parents come over here and they tell y'all about how their kids are being impacted by violence. There's adults being killed and shot at by children, 16, 17-year-old. My little sister isn't here because of this reason, and it happened in 1999, and here we are, 2023, and we have the same problem, kids with guns. The solution isn't to have more police officers, have something that keeps them away, because I don't know what y'all are listening to. Children are not running to police officers. I have videos where they're running from them. They're being chased, they're being beaten up and stuff like that. Now, I want to correct that. I want kids to walk up to police officers. I want police officers to be in the community, involved in it, not just show up to arrest people. Then I would agree with y'all giving them millions and millions of dollars, because it's going to good officers that do their job. Now, until that's addressed, I don't see it fit that these police officers are getting money when none of them are being held accountable. Not just for what they do to me, because I prove what they do to me on video. What about the people they take their phones from? That's my problem. None of y'all want to hold them accountable. When is it going to happen? It's enough time that y'all stop standing behind these officers and get behind citizens. They put y'all up
Thank you,
there.
Mr. Mata. Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy Super.
Good evening, council members, mayor, and appointed city officials. My comments reflect the opinions of myself and my husband, who are residents within the part of Fort Worth that Councilman Crane represents. I was at the meeting when Fort Worth ISD trustees heard the many voices of its community members who asked them to at least go with the no new revenue property tax rate. You'll find me at almost every single regular Fort Worth ISD school board meeting, so when I tell you that I was quite pleased when all but one of the trustees did vote in favor of a no new revenue tax rate, it was quite refreshing. Refreshingly surprising, but refreshing. I know at least one of you have expressed on more than one occasion that you're glad Fort Worth ISD holds its meetings on the same night that City Council meets, so that people like me must choose which meeting to attend, which entity to focus their attention on, which entity to ask its elected officials to take their fiscal responsibilities seriously and align those responsibilities by taking into consideration input received from the very people on whom you rely to provide the billion-dollar-plus budget you're trying to finance via your vote tonight. I listened to the presentation just given and heard much of the same rhetoric I heard when similar presentations were given before other taxing entities. And while I'm asking you to vote for at least a no new revenue tax rate, we all know that rate has little to do with how much more of our money we will be forced to hand over to you. Y'all know those fun property tax bills we get each year are based on the appraised values of our homes. You're continuing to receive unprecedented amounts of money based on the unrealized capital gains of taxpayers who reside in Fort Worth. Please take your collective hands out of my family's budget, which we find a way to manage without demanding increases in our income every year. Please vote what you are proposing down and make do, as we all must, and what you have already have to fund the necessary needs of the citizens of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. A question for the audience. There are two speakers that are signed up on a different ordinance, but I'm wondering if maybe they intended to speak about the tax rate. One is Holly Plemons, and the other one is Mike C. If you wanted to speak, okay, then Holly would be next, followed by Mike C. Just for reference, council, they had originally signed up on 23-0594, but I'm going to move them to this position to make sure they speak first.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, Holly Plemons. I'm the mom of 3, taxpayer in Fort Worth ISD. Elizabeth Beck is my city council person. I'm here to talk to you about the tax rate. Enough. We're done. No more taxes, no more money. You need to learn how to deal with your budget. I am a stay-at-home mom. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. I still have a 10-year-old, so I still want to stay home with him, and that's my right to get to do that. I want to be the one to raise my children. I get it. Y'all want me to go to work so that you can have another person paying taxes, more money, bigger houses. I don't want that. I want to be there for my kids. We can't be there for our kids when you're taxing us out of our homes. So if I don't pay my taxes and Linebarger comes to me and is telling me that they're going to come and take my home, are you guys going to help me? Am I going to be special enough then? Am I going to be in your little special group of people that are going to get the free internet and the free period pads and the free windows and the free roofs and all the things that you do? Are y'all going to help me? Because I don't qualify for any of that. My husband works 83 hours a week. Yes, he works 2 full-time jobs to support us. I rarely get to see him, but that's what's important for our family. In my neighborhood, you want me to go live in a different neighborhood? I hear gunshots every single night. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 20 years. Where do you want me to cut back so that I can give you, you said $14, $40, $150, $250. Where do you want me to cut back more? I drive a 16-year-old car. My husband drives a car from the 90s. My son pays for his own college, and I am so proud of him that he did that because he wanted to go. Where do you want me to cut back? I don't go on vacations. I don't do anything. And I'm not alone. I'm the middle class that we're dying because of what all of you are doing. So then you want to threaten us. We're going to take your police and your fire and your roads. That is what our property taxes is supposed to be funding, not art installations, not all the other things, not the DEI that you waste money on. Nettles told me, drop in the bucket. Well, if it's a drop in the bucket, go for it. It's $2 million, and it's an absolute waste of money. You need to be responsible with our money. This is our money, and you work for us. I've heard you say that not that many people show up. You're taxing us to death. We have to go to work. People can't show up. What else do you want people to do? They don't come here enough. They don't email you enough. They don't do things. People aren't getting educated. You all know that from Fort Worth ISD. And then you expect them to know how to come to you. They fall for your song and dance, that you lowered the rate, which is what I heard from you, Mr. Williams. You lowered the rate. Nobody cares about the rate. They care about the bill that comes in the mail. You need to adopt the no new revenue rate. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mike C., and I believe that David Martinez is here now. David would be next.
I just want to be clear on something right here. Mike C., thank you. I just want to be clear on something. Everybody on this board is representing me as far as I'm concerned, because everything that you do and what you vote on affects me and my life and the rest of these people, the rest of the taxpayers. So I just want to be clear on that. What our civic leaders are proposing is a tax rate that is higher than the no new revenue tax rate. Your taxes will go up. Fort Worth has one of the highest tax rates in the region. This increase will add to last year's budget by an amount of $65+ million, which is the equivalent of a 9.2% increase. I haven't received a 9.2 increase on my income. This tax increase is unsustainable. Just yesterday, I shopped at an everyday, non-fancy type of grocery store. Literally, I saw a gallon of milk for $10. And a holiday cookie tin's priced from $25 to $50. This is our reality. I recommend the city tightens its belt. One suggestion I can make is to eliminate the wasteful $1 million+ my numbers might be wrong on that, the $1 million+ DEI board. Councilmember Alan Blaylock, District 10, is the only member of the council who has committed to voting no on this tax rate. Sir, I commend you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our next speaker is David Martinez. I think Carlos Tercios is here now.
Thank you for letting me get back in line. I didn't know I was
problem.
running late in the traffic. Thank you. I just want to bring up something that's happening right now in Carter Park. In Carter Park, we see a lot of the homeless and we see a lot of the transients and everything. We were able to get some of the people that were mentally ill places to go and stay, but the drug addicts come back, and the prostitution and the gangs and the nuisance abatement people, the people that have properties like the motels. These are corporate motels, and they are the ones that keep this going on. But like, we asked for police, and thanks to Councilwoman Martinez, she was able to help us out with more police officers. And I'm not for defunding the police. I've never been. You've heard me come over here and say it. We'll give you as much as you want to protect our children. You have to understand, in my neighborhood, the other day, there was a 3-year-old baby raped, okay? This is what we're dealing with, sick, evil people. And they are burning down my neighborhood, and we need fire department, we need firemen. And so we're all for it. My community, every one of us want the same thing. At District 11 meeting, with all the neighborhood associations, we all want the same thing. But it seems like when I went to the meeting last night with Nettles and Councilwoman Martinez over there at Texas Wesleyan, it seems like, oh, the homeless, this, that. You know what? They have become the protected class, not the middle class, not the people who pay taxes. And so I'm like this, well, I've been down on my luck. My family was down on luck at one time and stuff like that. For about a month, we were homeless and stuff like that. But you know what? I'm Native American. I'm Choctaw, and so living off the land, that's what we do. But at the same time, when I tell you like this, when did I get to become a protected class? My family escaped the Holocaust. They came over here, and I have family that's been on the reservation. We don't have doctors on the reservation, but we still make it. But I'm gonna tell you like this, I'm tired of getting moved to the back of the line again, and that's what happens. That's what's happening in Fort Worth. We're getting moved to the back of the line, and that shouldn't happen. I mean, I understand there's not enough to go around, but I'll see here, waste there. And I don't know, it's to me, it's like this, the solution is more jobs, better education. We're lacking in education. And then I understand you want to build more houses and more housing, but we're not gonna live in no tiny little boxes. My family fought in World War II, and so they didn't come back home so they could come over here and be in tiny little boxes and live like communists. That's what we fought against for all these decades. So I'm not trying to get on y'all, but we need a better solution than this, because it's not gonna work. So that's what I had to say, and hopefully you don't take it personal, because we're all in it together. All of us children are in danger.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Our next speaker is Carlos Tercios. Up to speak that had intended to speak on this item. I just want to make sure. You can raise your hand. Yes, sir. What's your name, sir? Aaron James. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Parker, council members, of course, City Manager David Cook. My name is Carlos Tercios, and I'm just here to encourage that a no new revenue rate is, of course, supported instead of the proposed measure that is, of course, you are going to be voting on. Of course, our taxes in the city, of course, are too high, and of course, many of the speakers today that have spoken have mentioned that, no new taxes, please. Tarrant County, Fort Worth ISD, Keller ISD, and many other tax entities, they have voted on either a no new revenue rate or below a no new revenue rate. Right now, our economic conditions, especially for young Fort Worth citizens, it's not great. We don't get paid well. I don't get paid well. And right now, when my girlfriend and I, we go to Walmart, we go to any of these places, we're having to penny pinch just to even make it. And I'm actually concerned. I'm concerned about young Fort Worth citizens. I'm concerned about their future in this city, well, not just in the city, but in the country, because the economic conditions are not there. My parents, when they came here, they didn't go, my mom didn't graduate high school, and they were able to make more money than some Americans that were born here with a bachelor's or a PhD. Today, you can have a bachelor's or PhD, and you'll probably be making less than someone that works at Buc-ee's. So I encourage y'all to, of course, support taxpayers. This is not even a partisan issue. This is a nonpartisan issue. This is something that even Democrats and Republicans should be supporting, is no new taxes. We need a no new revenue rate in the city of Fort Worth, and we need to make sure that there's property tax relief for taxpayers in the city of Fort Worth. Fort Worth ISD did it. Keller ISD, Tarrant County, they're all leading the charge, and I hope that our council members lead the charge when it comes to that. I do want to commend Alan Blaylock, the city council member that has basically said that he will be voting against this resolution because it's not actually going to be giving property tax relief for taxpayers. But I encourage y'all to actually listen. Another recommendation I do want to give, I barely got out of work at 5 p.m. and I was stuck in traffic, and I encourage y'all to please don't do meetings at 5 p.m., especially if it's an important issue like this. Do it 6 p.m., do it 6:30 p.m., but some of us have to be working, saving money, or paying college debt, which unfortunately I have to pay because the system that we live in made us go, get in debt and be enslaved to that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Aaron James.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'm here tonight to ask y'all to adopt a tax rate below the no new revenue rate. There are so many families throughout Fort Worth that are struggling. They're struggling to pay their bills, myself included. Y'all live here too, so I know you all understand we are paying more money for fuel, for groceries, and for utilities in our homes. And as a matter of fact, I had a buddy of mine reach out to me just before the meeting tonight and asked me if I could help him pay his light bill. We're not doing so well in the economy right now, and a proposed tax rate increase will only put unnecessary stress on the citizens of our city. The homeless encampments throughout the city seem to be increasing as well. If you drive down Las Vegas Trail, you'll see what I mean. And more people will be joining the homeless if y'all continue to bleed folks' finances by increasing the tax rate. Y'all have the ability. Y'all have the ability to do the right thing, and I would ask that y'all make the right decision and adopt a tax rate below the no new revenue tax rate. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. James. Just going to confirm for the audience, no one else had intended to speak on this item, correct? There's also a budget item, but I think that covers most everybody. I wanted to make sure that was the case. Okay, very well. Council, that's the last of our speakers. I believe we're going to have an alternative motion on the floor. I'll turn to Councilmember Blaylock. Oh, first, I got to close the public hearing, and they'll do the ordinance separate? Okay. But we need to vote on this item separately? Okay. So we don't need to do that yet. I've closed the public hearing. I will move on to the ordinance, which is 23-0593. And then let me make sure I don't have speakers on this item. Just a second. I don't. So Councilmember Blaylock, I'll turn to you. Sorry about that. No.
This is the fee ordinance.
So we,
This is Macy's motion.
okay, then this is going to turn to Councilmember Hill.
Wait, to clarify, this is the fee
Yes, it is.
ordinance, okay. I move, regarding ordinance number 23-0593, I move to approve the ordinance with the following changes. 1, amend the ordinance to make conforming changes to include the code sections for certain fees being changed or added in the ordinance. And 2, change the fiscal year listed in the ordinance to fiscal year 2024.
Got a motion and a second. Council, any discussion? Please vote. Go ahead.
This is on the fees, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have some consternation about the fees as well. I know that every dollar counts in the family budget, and increasing fees, while I understand that they go to supporting some of the costs of delivering those services, I also have consternation about incrementally increasing fees over time and the impact that it has, not only on individual rate payers, but also on businesses and especially nonprofit community as well, making rental decisions for city facilities. So I am increasingly more concerned about how we manage fees over time. And so I just wanted to say that in the record as we work through additional budgets that fees are also a tax as well.
But just to be clear, no alternative motion, just wanted that on the record, correct?
No alternative motion.
Okay, thank you. I've got a motion and a second by Councilmember Nettles. Any other discussion? Please vote. I've got a yay, and Gina, is that a nay, correct?
Yeah, it's a nay.
Okay, just making sure, thank you. Motion carries.
Next item is item 23-0596.
And this is the budget, and we do have a few speakers on this item. Our first is Amy Super, followed by Carolyn Rodriguez.
Okay, so I'm back, and I want to quote from part of the budget part of the, I guess, the ordinance, okay? So when you get further down all the long, fun words, there's a section that talks about prohibiting the expending, obligating, or committing of funds in excess of appropriations, comma, or actual available resources. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is I'd like you to amend this. Cut out the words appropriations and the word or. Let's try sticking with prohibiting the expending obligations or obligating or committing of funds in excess of actual available resources. For whatever reason, this seems like a novel concept to people who run government entities as a whole. You guys are certainly not the only entity that I take issue with on this, but it doesn't work in the real world. When I speak at Fort Worth ISD school board meetings and I see proposals for things that are absolutely outrageous, and then at the end of the year, I'm looking at them approving a budget that's $55 million in the red, I start thinking back to all the things that they considered, all the things that they voted for, all the things that they wanted, not necessarily needed. That's another concept we might need to go over. The difference between essential things and things we'd like to have just because it would make life better, make life easier, whatever the case may be, but just really putting some thought into the concept of what is truly essential and what are truly things that we're just gonna go ahead and pay for because, I don't know, maybe it gets a few of you some extra votes. Maybe it just makes you feel better doing it. I don't know. I get where you're coming from on that, but this is too far. You're already over $1 billion on this budget. When I have to sit down and do my budget, if there's something I want, I can't go to the people who put money into our account and simply say, hey, we'd like to go here this year, and it's not part of our budget. So I'm gonna need you guys to just go ahead and put another $10,000 or $20,000 into our account this year so we can afford to do things that we would like to do. That's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. Thank you.
Already that. Carolyn Rodriguez.
Okay, so we're talking about the budget, right? Carolina, by the way. Okay. All right. So I'm just wanting you guys to really think really hard about you guys allocating $63 million to the police, because I don't know what it's going to go for. I mean, I don't know what they're spending their money on now. But we should really be diverting that money to the root of the problem, which is the mental health crisis and homelessness, because they're the ones that are being picked on by the police anyways. But the police have an inadequate response to the mental health crisis already. They had like 12,000 calls last year for mental health problems, and they ended up, using use of force on them, and sometimes and they just took them to jail without even any kind of recourse, because we should be spending money like more on the diversity center that we have over here, which instead of taking criminal trespassers to jail, they take them over there and get them help. Because when they get out of jail, they're just going to be doing the same stuff that they were doing before. But we need more non-law enforcement options to bring safety to the community. Because right now, safety is number one for all these officers and for everybody. Everybody wants safety. Nobody wants to have another Uvalde, right? Which could happen. But, so mostly, what's that? I hear voices. So it's not me. Anyways, where was I at? I got lost now. So yeah, we should be diverting that money to like the different non-law enforcement things to help the mentally challenged, because that's who the police deal with lots of times and most of the time. Because we think of, when we see police, we think of safety, but when other people in Fort Worth see police, they run away from them. They think of terror, because they equate policing with terror because that's who the police target the most. So it's a kind of a racist kind of deal, but that's what the police target, more people of color and more poor people than anybody else. And they target them because they really don't have a clue onto what their rights are. So, but the policies that they have, everything that they tell you up here on the podium and everything, is not what they're doing in the street. They haven't fixed their culture yet. They still have that real bad thug culture, and it's not going to change until the leaders change, because the leaders allow it. If the leaders didn't allow it, maybe they wouldn't have that thug culture. But when they are dealing with people out on the street, they usually are escalating things instead of de-escalating. So when they want somebody to comply, they think just walking up there in their uniform is going to make them comply, because they're the police, and you're supposed to listen to the police and do what they say. So they ask somebody to comply, and then they command them, and then they make them, any way that they can, they make them do what they want. But it's not adequate. I don't know if you guys know about it, but there was this little boy who was ran over on Berry Street, and he had every bone in his body broken, but he lived. It was a hit and run. He was up in the hospital, and the mother kept asking the police, what's going on with that? What's going on with this little boy? Did you find the hit and run driver? The police were like, oh, no, we tried, but we couldn't find anybody. So she got out of that hospital, went down, she got all the Ring videos, all the store videos. She found out who the guy was that hit and ran, not the police.
Thank you, Carolyn. Council, I believe that's the last of our speakers on this item. I can entertain a motion on 23-0596. Yes.
Move for approval.
Got a motion and a second, council? Yes.
Yeah, we have comments on it too.
Go ahead, Councilman Larsdorf.
So I thought we were doing the rate first. This is.
Nope, we're doing budget first.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so I will go more into detail in a moment on where I stand on the rate, but since we're going to do the budget first, one, I just want to make sure that the staff understands my sincere appreciation for the amount of work that went into this budget. I mean, I can only imagine how much work actually went into this just based on the binder that we received just a few weeks ago. So I appreciate the work that did go into it. And what I want to make sure everyone knows is that everyone on this side of the dais is in the same position as you, as far as, we do pay those taxes as well. All the same issues you said you have, I assure you we're having those too. On that, whenever it does come down to the budget though, one of the things I do want to see done differently is the process. One of the major issues I have is the process. I made that clear with the city manager. We talked about it. Being new to this seat, it's opened my eyes a lot to how things work, how they've worked in the past, and how I think they can work better in the future. It's not necessarily a knock on staff at all. It's just how I'd like to see things done differently. So to that end, I do plan on working more closely with them as we go throughout the year, and working more closely with the residents of District 4, who I represent, and making things more transparent in the processes and how we come to the decisions we make when it comes time to make them, such as tonight, rather than just waiting till 2 weeks prior at a budget meeting or a budget town hall out town. This way, when we get to this point, everyone actually understands how we got to where we got to. And because I know tomorrow, staff is going to start working on next year's budget. That's how much work they put into it. So I do thank you for that. What we're getting out of this budget, there's a lot of great wins for everyone, not just District 4, but the city as a whole, whether it's the additional fire, whether it's different police, more money to Parks and Rec, which we can all appreciate. I mean, I do think the theme of so safe, so clean, so green, I think the budget does reflect that. So, Mr. Cook, thank you for your efforts there. A lot of the issues that we have in District 4, for example, like the homeless issues, like the lack of police, well, those are going to be fixed by adding more resources to it. Those resources do, in fact, cost money. So I'm not naive to that fact, that it's going to take more resources to accomplish those things. And also, I'm not naive to the fact that other entities, they may be lowering their tax rate, and that's great. But however, if my house catches on fire or if someone breaks into my house, I'm not calling any of the ISDs to help take care of that. When I flush my toilets, I'm not looking to the ISDs to make sure that that gets from point A to point B. Unfortunately, I know that aging infrastructure does require money. It requires a thorough and thoughtful budget. So again, I'm not naive to any of that. However, I was elected to represent those in District 4, and so it's with their voice that, unfortunately, because I don't think we got where we need to on the tax rate, which we'll talk more about later, I can't support the budget and it's the way it's set now. And again, it's not so much where it's at, it's more the processes. And so I do hope that next year, whenever we're having this conversation, those in District 4 who may have issues with where we're at, they'll say, hey, Councilman Lowers, I know where we're at and I'm okay with it because everything was transparent. We were part of the process. And whenever I say we, I mean not just myself at these budget workshops, these meetings, these work sessions where we're talking about this, but I mean the residents too, and making sure they're more involved in the processes, they're more involved in the meetings that will actually impact their life. So that's all I have on that, and I guess we'll talk more about the rate itself later. So,
Thank you, Charlie. Councilmember Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First, I want to just really commend our city manager team and staff for the process in which we were led to this. And last year in the council retreat, we set priorities for this council that encompassed really prioritizing values I think we all share. That is ensuring that the quality of life for our residents was increased because of this process. And we focus on that in a number of ways, and I see that reflected in the budget, and I really appreciate that. There's a lot of things that, as we did our rounds through the community all year, but specifically through the budget process, that I think were bright spots in this budget that our residents really appreciated, from our commitment to first response needs, particularly in District 6, the need for additional patrol, the need for investments in HOPE team for our homeless outreach, and in our CIT team, as well as investments in our firefighters. I know for the past since I've been on council, I've been particularly vocal about the importance of ensuring that our firefighters have the resources that they need to serve a rapidly growing city. And I'm proud that we've gotten to this point where we're now right-sizing staffing for our firefighters who work so hard for us day in and day out, and the first responders. And so adding 70 firefighters is a really huge deal, and really moves us in the right direction. The other thing I would say is I've been very vocal on neighborhoods and the importance of neighborhoods as a building block to a prosperous city. And I've just been so pleased at the way that we've made a commitment to investing in neighborhoods in this budget. There are a few things that I also was vocal on that aren't included in this budget that I look forward to continue to work on. And that includes a couple things. One, taking a hard look at how we're compensating our employees. Right now, we have employees that work full-time for the city that are making $15 an hour. And that $15 an hour, as you all know, doesn't stretch as far as families would like it to. And my consternation is that as we as a city council and as a city grapple with affordability crisis in this city, that we also should be leading the way with the way that we pay our employees for the amazing work that they do in service to our residents as public servants. And so I've personally asked the mayor and staff that over the next year that we look at how do we address pay given the demands in terms of costs from childcare to housing to property taxes, as we're talking today, and a number of other things that $15 an hour just won't meet, let alone putting 10% away for savings for a future for investing in generational wealth. So I think there's so much more to work on, and I look forward to continuing to work on those things. But all in all, I think this was a noble shot at addressing some of the goals that our council set before city management.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Mayor Pro Tem Bivens. You there, Gina?
Yeah, I just said, never mind.
Okay, very well. Council, who else has comments on the budget? Alan, please.
So thank you, Mayor. I'd like to also express my thanks to the city manager, David Cook, the ACM's directors, and many more staff who put so much hard work into this entire process. I'd also like to thank those that raised concerns over the past year and those who chose to comment and speak today. Your voices are important. There's been a consistent theme from my district, and that's expressing concerns for public safety, infrastructure, and property taxes. I'm proud of the incredible progress being made on public safety and infrastructure in the budget and more. There's lots of great things here. The third concern, though, property taxes, is my concern with the budget and the tax rate. Inflationary pressures on constituents' personal budgets force them to make hard choices. I ask their city to do the same. Regularly hear from my constituents that they feel overtaxed and underserved. It's incumbent on us as elected officials to take extreme care with their tax dollars. It's been my position and my belief that continual rate increases of government spending is unsustainable for the long-term health of our city. For those reasons and more, I will not be supporting this budget or the proposed tax rate, and will be offering an alternative motion on the tax rate.
Any other council member comments?
Are you going? Are you thanks, Alan, Charlie, y'all Jared, for your comments. Thanks also for everybody that's here and everybody that's called the office, emailed, et cetera. I know we've all gotten lots of emails and calls. And staff, thank you for the months-long process to get this to us. I do have a problem with the process overall. Councilman Lauersdorf has already brought that up. Some other colleagues have brought it up in work session about how it gets to us, the process that we can then go out and talk to people. That's something I think we have to solve overall. It feels like every year we say that, but I think we really have to do that. Tonight I'm going to support this budget, but for a few reasons. One, I want to send a message to our police and our fire that we support them, and a vote against it could be interpreted in some ways with our first responders that we don't support the work that they do. I also know there's a big part of this budget that's critical infrastructure, and those three pieces are about 80% of the overall budget, somewhere around there. Might be off of the numbers a little bit, but somewhere around there. And those are things I continually hear from constituents that we have to resolve those issues. The tax rate will be a different conversation that we'll vote on separately, and that might be a chance where we still have a bite at the apple for the city to tighten its belt. But my vote tonight is to show the police, fire, and that we need to resolve critical infrastructure in the city, pipe breaks, everything else, the calls that we get and the issues that we have. And I invite anybody to call. Let's sit down and have a conversation to understand a little bit better about all the parts that go into this budget. But from that, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councilmember Crane. Councilmember Nettles, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I will also, I will have more comments on the tax rate, but I do want to stop and say here, I will support this budget. And what I think is very important is that we met with our police department, we are increasing over 100 police officers. And when we also talk with our department, it's going to take 2 years in order to get us in the stability of hiring enough officers. So we have to, this council is employed to do things today that is going to support our communities each and every year beyond today. And I'm grateful for the 75 firefighters. One of the other important things is our CIT team being increased. We have seen that our public health issues are on the horizon, our mental issues, even with employees, with the city of Fort Worth. And we need to make sure that we see about the community and the citizens of Fort Worth. An increase in our CIT team allows for officers to deal with our mental health and not take away from officers who need to be in patrol. So I'm grateful for a lot of things that's happening in this budget. As far as infrastructure, there is a lot of development that's happening far south Fort Worth in my district, and infrastructure needs to take place there as well. And so tonight, I will be supporting this budget. I have the same concerns as Charlie and Crane about the process. And I think we can work on getting that better. We're going into the third year, it's been on council, so we want to see some changes as we move forward in the next budget process. I would tell you, I heard about a lot of budget meetings that happen in our community, and I tell you, we didn't have this many people coming in the community when we had budget at our locations, at our schools, at our neighborhoods. And so while we are so concerned tonight, and I am grateful that this is a great platform to come, but we make these changes and we dive deep into conversation one-on-one. We come out to the community. And when we don't have participation, as we do tonight, it kind of allows us to lose footing. And so I want to encourage you that next year, that let's not just show up on the day of the voting, which is good. This is your very right to do, but let's be involved in the process starting in February and on August as we go into each and varied neighborhood. And so I'll have more comments when we talk about how do we get to a no new revenue tax rate. And I'll be excited to talk about those next. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Beck?
Thank you. I just also would like to thank take the opportunity to thank staff for all of the hard work that they've done. I think that this budget vote is incredibly important. It doesn't just send a message to police and fire that we support them, but the 7,000 plus employees that we have working for the city of Fort Worth are so important. And we can't forget them when we talk about the budget. We aren't just they take pride in what they do. They come and work for the city because they care about the community that they live in. And this budget allows them to continue that work in making our city one of the greatest cities in the world. I'd also like to thank my colleagues on this dais that engaged in meaningful discussion about this budget and what it looks like and what is in there and what isn't in there to allow us to get to the point where we are today, not waiting till the last minute to say you don't like the final product. And so to those of you on the dais who have stayed true to the process, because we've heard a lot about the process tonight, I want to thank you for being meaningful partners in this budget process, both during the process and tonight in this vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Beck. Councilmember Williams?
Yeah, I wanted to wait till all the comments were done. I did want to have one question about the $4.2 million that are set aside for the transitional funding to EMS. And the question is, I know I asked it in one-on-one meetings, but what pro rata share are other entities that are participating in MedStar currently committed to funding? I understand that the $4.2 million is important for sustaining MedStar's operations as we decide what does EMS look like.
It's currently zero, correct, David Cook? No other entity is committed to funding, correct?
We had our first meeting last week with all the partner entities. So in our budget is the $4.2 million that has to be approved by the city council before it can get spent. Councilmember Flores and I were talking with that group. They all want to participate, so they're committed to being a partner in it. How much everybody's got to contribute, we're too early in the process to know what that should look like.
Perfect.
Right. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate that. Although we're appropriating it tonight in this budget, which I support, I do not support us footing the whole bill for this temporary bailout. So I just wanted to put that on the record that I think it's important that other partners participate as we continue to evaluate what does EMS look like for our city and our residents.
Thank you, Jared. Council, any other comments or questions regarding the budget? No? Again, thank you to city management and city staff. Many of you are here this evening, especially to the Fort Worth Lab, who I think have proposed an excellent budget for us to consider. A few real high-level points, and I'll carry the rest of them over to the discussion related to our tax rate and proposed motion on no new revenue. The city is focused on public safety and the basics. So again, that's 106 employees for the police department, 76 firefighters. That includes a focus on MPOs, the HOPE team, and the CIT team that's already been referenced. It's also important to note almost $80 million to pay-go maintenance for our streets, sidewalks, parks, street lightings, pavement markings, and transit facilities. I could go on, but I think you get the point. I will close in saying this. The same way you're seeing an increase in buying milk at the grocery store or bread for your children, those same city services are increasingly more expensive. Interest rates and inflation have hit city budgets tremendously. So when we pour pavement on a new street, it's much more expensive this year. And so the just shy of 6% increase total in revenue share that you're seeing is poured into basic city services. It would take us about $40 million in cuts, and it would not just come out of M&O. It's a very complicated discussion. It also would have to come out of your INS tax rate rating, which hamstrings your debt capacity into future bond elections. And so when somebody in this city, the city that is growing by 100,000 people every 5 years, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep up. The last thing I want to make, and I had a conversation this morning with someone from Fort Worth, multiple generations, is that this budget is for the people that have lived here for generations. This is not just about paying for people that are moving here. The city services, the stormwater increases you're needing to protect your environments against flooding, the streets and sidewalks and libraries we're putting into historic neighborhoods. These are all things that over a year's time period, this community has begged us to focus on quality of life. We joked around about the slogan, so clean, so green, so safe. But candidly, that's what our citizens are asking of us. And we are doing more with less and still been able to deliver those things. To those of you that came this evening, thank you for being here. Thank you for your very candid feedback. We hear your frustrations. There are frustrations as taxpayers ourselves, as folks that have aging parents that are trying to live in the city of Fort Worth. I will remind you that we prioritize those that are over 65 and disabled with that exemption. That was a policy decision this council made this summer. And so we will continue to work together. It's obvious from this dais there's some concern about budget process, and I think that is important for city management and the budget office to hear closely, and then how my office can also work forward and to make sure that we provide optimal city services for our residents in an environment that we're all very proud to live in, and these can be contentious topics. I know there's been a lot of discussion about what other taxing entities are doing in Tarrant County. We are the largest city in Tarrant County. We provide the bulk of these services, especially in public safety and transportation infrastructure. That's where this budget sits. And so I fully respect where the position of my council members, but I would tell you this, I didn't hear for one specific cut that you wanted out of this budget, and not from this dais. And so I know these are painful conversations, but you had ample opportunity over the last 2 months to ask for very specific cuts. And again, it cannot just come out of M&O, it has to come out of INS. And we have to have a bond election in 2026. You can't get there, not without raising the tax rate. And so there's some very important projects that we know are life and safety issues for this city in the 2026 bond, and this budget is helping us plan for those into the future. I really appreciate the leadership of this council. These are hard decisions to make. And again, thank you to the city staff that have sat through countless hours of public meetings and really responded to the requests of this community in Fort Worth. With that, council, I've got a motion and a second. Please vote. I've got 2 yeses from Councilmember Beck and Councilmember Vivens. Motion carries.
Next item is 23-0594.
Uh-oh, my screen went away, just a second. We'll figure that out in a second. 0594.
Yes.
I'm just going to clarify. I did move Ms. Plemons and Mike C. to the other item, and that was the correct move. I just make sure everybody got their chance to speak. Okay. Then we have no speakers on this item, council, and I'll turn to Councilmember Blaylock. What's your name, sir? Joe Palmer. Just a second. Did you maybe sign up under the public comment section, you think? Okay, no problem. Just 1 second. Okay, you're on the public comment. I'm going to go ahead and have you speak now, if that'd be okay. Thank you.
This is on the rate, correct? Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, Joe Palmer, 4017 Sanguinet Court. I'd like to zero in on a couple of things that were said. One comment was made was that members of the council are also residents of Fort Worth, and they also pay the property taxes. This really is not a vote on whether or not you yourself are going to pay more or pay less. You're voting to force your neighbor to pay more. And bills are higher. what are the other cities doing? How are the other cities and the other taxing entities able to lower their tax rate? The county has a hospital. The county has a sheriff's department. They're able to do it. And I'm sorry, but I have to reject the rationale that because other local taxing entities are lowering their tax rate, that somehow gives you justification to fill in that void with an expansion of the services that you provide. And another point is that your budget includes more than just fire and police and libraries and things for senior citizens. We all know that. So nobody here is fighting against the police budget. Nobody here is fighting against the fire budget. You are top-heavy. You've got administrators. You have employees making $15 an hour. You failed to mention that you've got a lot of administrative employees making 6 figures a year. So we don't talk about those, do we? How many of those have been laid off in the last 3 or 4 years? You're just as big or bigger than you were before COVID, during COVID. There are cuts that can be made to the budget without touching fire and police. Stop hiding behind cops. Stop. You have rising costs in materials. Madam Mayor, you mentioned it yourself. Families are hurting. Families can't pay for food. So the proper thing to do in that scenario is to lower the burden, lessen the burden on families. I want a no new revenue rate. And you know darn well that the no new revenue rate does not include new growth that wasn't on the tax rolls last year. So you are going to get extra revenue. So I want a no new revenue rate. Me personally, my property taxes are going to go up almost 20% on my home. And that's about the average countywide. When the appraisal increases go up and the tax rate, even when the tax rate stays the same, your total tax levy is going to increase. And a total tax levy is how we measure whether or not you had a tax increase. It's not how it affects my bill. I would like the questions asked from council members. What is the total levy projected that you will get from the no new revenue rate versus the proposed rate? That's your answer. That's where the tax increase is. Thank you.
Council, I believe that's the last of our speakers on this item. Councilmember Blaylock.
I think everyone knows my position already, and so I'm just going to make a simple motion to adopt the no new revenue rate, tax rate of 0.635374 per $100 evaluation.
I've got a motion and a second on the floor. I'm just going to ask Councilmember Blaylock, were there any specific cuts that you wanted to see in the budget to get us to the no new revenue tax rate? It's about $40 million.
So if we're talking about, so if we're talking about the budget and the no new revenue rate, and we're comparing to last year and what we did last year, there's not an item that would need to be cut. What we're really talking about is the growth in the budget this year and whether it should be $40 million lower or not. And so I think it's a time shift discussion. I don't think it's we can't do something. It's just simply whether it happens in 2024 or early 2025.
Totally understand. I'm just simply asking, was there anything in that fiscal year 2024 budget that you didn't feel we could live without this year and we needed to shift to potentially looking at fiscal year 2025?
So I would challenge staff from that case to go through the budget in detail and see if there are items that we're funding in this time frame that can be shifted and what the overall impact is.
Yeah.
I did not have those conversations, so I can't point to a specific
Fair enough.
item.
I just wanted to ensure that you weren't asking for any specific cuts and didn't receive those. You never asked for those things to be cut.
You're correct.
Okay, very well. Any other discussion, council? I think I've got a few speakers. Councilmember Flores, go ahead.
I have a substitute motion, Mayor.
Okay.
All right. I have a motion with the following required statutory language. Move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate 0.6725 per $100 valuation, which is effectively a 5.84% increase in the tax rate.
Thank you, Carlos. I've got a motion on the floor, but I think we have a few more speakers, so we'll come back. And I'll explain procedurally how that'll work. Councilmember Larsdorf, go ahead.
Speaking to Alan's motion, okay, because.
That's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
So one, I guess I'll also take an opportunity to answer your question too, Mayor, because I think it's a very fair question. And no, I did not present to city staff at any point saying, here's where I think we can cut. However, I'm going back to the original processes. Like one of the things I talked to city leadership about was, you know, some of the programs that are out there, like can we pay for them or can we budget for them in arrears? So for example, some of the additional money that we weren't expecting from you know, high sales tax or from other revenue sources, if those programs or if those budget items can be funded from that rather than front-loaded. And so that's one of the things I would like to look at. You know, and if we have it in the budget at the end from that surplus, then we can pay for them. And so I didn't see any particular, like one particular item. I mean, let's be honest, up until about 3 weeks ago, I didn't know which elevator to take to get to my office. So still learning so much. And of course, being thrust into it right at the beginning and be like, oh, wow, okay, here's a budget now. And still learn the process. And so that's why next year or throughout this year, I want to be more involved in learning it. And then two, what I would like to see as far as the process is some of those decision packages throughout the year and then towards the end on how it looked that way, you know, whenever the Forward Lab, which I think has done an excellent job in all their work. I mean, that's a thankless job in showing us, here are your options, here's what it would look like, in enough time for us to do multiple meetings with our constituents. So we can say, hey, here's your options. Do you want the Denny's steak or do you want the B&B Butcher steak? And then that way, at least they know what they're getting, because we all hear the same things. We want more police. Okay, got it. Well, every single resident here could have one police officer assigned to their house. What's that going to cost? It comes with a price tag. So I think it just comes down to the transparency and the explain the processes and what they all get, and not at the very end of the year to where we're at tonight. So just to answer your question there. And then as far as my position on seconding Alan's, I mean, I did the math on my own home, because if we're going to talk about cuts that we have to make in our own house and our own budgets and cutbacks we have to make, I mean, the difference between the no new revenue rate and the proposed rate for my personal home is $1,260. I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm okay with that personally, because I know it's going to help pay for these additional services that I want. However, it goes back to I'm not here for myself. I'm here to represent the 95,000 or so in District 4. And if some have an issue with that $12.50 raise or the $20 raise or whatever it may be, if they have serious issues with those, then in the end, I do have to be a steward of their tax dollars and of their decisions and their wishes. And so that's where I stand.
Thank you, Charlie. Councilmember Bivens.
Thank you, Mayor. I hate that I'm not there today to engage in the behind-the-scenes talks, that go on. But out of respect for Alan's idea, can you have staff talk about the legalities and when our drop dead date is to adopt this budget? So that Alan mentioned having staff do homework. How much time does he have to get that homework done?
Councilmember, like I said, say that. Leanne or David Cook are welcome to answer that question.
Well, there's a council meeting next Tuesday. You'd have to advertise a new property tax rate. So it's the advance time, and I don't know how many, 72 hours? Okay, so next Tuesday would be the drop dead time for the vote.
Thank you. Jean, does that answer your question?
Yeah, just curious. I really hate when people show up at the 11th hour. I don't like the process we've had with the budget for the past few years. When I first got on council, if a council member requested a meeting, that meeting was planned. And even though staff tells people, well, we gather your ideas all along as we attend your HOA and neighborhood association meetings, the public doesn't know that. And so I really hope that we can tighten up the process. But right now, I'm supporting this budget.
Councilmember Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I echo Mayor Pro Tem's sentiments. I think over the next couple of budget cycles, but especially the next one following this one, I would like to see us as a council be more involved in the line-by-line budgeting process. And the other thing I'd like to say is, I've always committed to our residents in District 6 that I would be a good steward and that when we talked about setting tax rates, that I would be brutally honest as well. And, you know, I commit to continue to do that. And one of the things that I think about a lot with setting tax rates is how did we get here as a city, as a state, et cetera. And I personally feel the brunt as a new parent, a single income household, having a retired parent who lives also in my household and seeing my property values go up year over year over year. And when we look at the system, we can't take it, we can't take today's vote in a vacuum. We have seen for decades that this state has not paid its fair share for public education, which has forced our local schools to make tough decisions about setting rates to fund more than their burden in terms of a tax rate. We also seen appraisals go up through the roof. And then I honestly think, and this is a state decision, but I think that we need to really take a hard look at setting how we set tax rates in relation to appraisals versus what we paid for it. That's nothing we can control here, but that's a debate that certainly should be had at the state. And then the other thing is, as a city, we are a rapidly growing city, and that fast growth requires us to keep pace as a city with the level of services that our residents expect. In addition to making bold investments in fixing decades-old worth of underinvestment in critical infrastructure, especially when you talk about roads, and we haven't even talked about transit in this budget. And so as we talk about the kind of city that we must be in order to be prosperous for our residents, I think we have to be really mindful of that context. The other thing I would say is this budget and this tax rate is not in a vacuum of previous budgets, nor will it be in a vacuum of future budgets. And so I think it's important that as we work over the next budget, that we really continue to take a hard look at what tax rates do to impact our residents. I personally wasn't a fan of the tax rate being released before we as a council started talking about budgets and what does it look like to achieve that goal. And so over the next year, I would like to take a hard look at that and also, frankly, have scenarios in budget terms of what does various rates look like, whether it's no new revenue, 4 cent, a 2 cent, a 1 cent, and then we can make tough decisions from there. I will be supporting the budget and the tax rate because I know that there's a lot of sweat equity that went into it, and I do appreciate the decrease that we did see in the tax rate, but in reality, it's not void of the context of families like mine who are feeling the crunch from costs, whether it's our property tax bill, whether it's our utility bill, our internet bill, our child care, which I haven't started paying child care yet, but I'm dreading that bill as well, whether it's food costs, et cetera. And so I'm very mindful of the impact that costs, what costs are doing for our residents and what our pay is not doing in many of our jobs for working people. And so with that being said, I will support the tax rate and also the budget, but I do want to state all that in the record as we work over the next year on a budget to really take a hard look at where families and our residents, frankly, are being hit hardest, and to see what type of budgets we can deliver as a council with more involvement, since we are stewards over the budget.
Councilor Nettles?
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to kind of jump and support on what would these cuts look like. And so I want to ask David a couple of questions here because I think it's important that we have true transparency and not just smoke and mirrors. What I think we have, David, as we look at the tax cut, the rate cut, did we lower it from last year?
So the tax rate is being reduced 4 cents from last year's tax rate.
Did we lower it the year before that?
We lowered it the year before that.
And so we have lowered the tax rate year to year. Also, we talked about where these cuts can take place. I heard the Neighborhood Improvement Program. I heard Diversity Inclusion Program. If we cut one of those two programs or both, what does that do to the how does it get us to the no new revenue?
So I'm going to do some of this from memory. So
Sure.
if we cut the Neighborhood Improvement Program, or just the addition that we added, that's $4 million. Every penny on the property tax rate is $11 million. right? So roughly a third of a cent would come by taking out the additional neighborhood that we added. If we took out the neighborhood improvement program entirely, that's $8 million, so now you're 2/3 of a cent. So again, you could go through and talk about diversity and inclusion. I can't remember the size of the budget, but for every,
It's 2 million.
so another 2 million, then you can start adding it up. You need, to get to the no new revenue rate, it's close to 40 million. I think that number has already been mentioned, so.
Yeah, so in order to get to this no new revenue, we need to eliminate $40 million away from this budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, David. I think it's incumbent on elected officials to, number one, support the community, but also make conscious decisions that will better our city years after we leave here, and not present to the community that we can do something that's frankly impossible here. We are the 13th largest city in the United States of America, and I will tell you that in District 8, I incumbents Spinks Airport. I have the $1 million homes that are behind Spinks Airport, and I also incumbents historical South Side. Used to have Riverside that took these programs like the NIP program. And I tell you, with the growing diversity, that when it comes to economically, how our minority contractors are involved in getting contract work throughout the city of Fort Worth, and how we treat employees. I think every department that we have here at the city of Fort Worth is well needed. I frankly pay taxes like some of us do, or unlike those who are renting, and I think that's good. We need renters, we need taxpayers, but we have to understand that we have to think wisely of our decisions tonight. And so I appreciate David and staff, and I think it's unfair to come up with a bright idea and then charge it to the staff to make it happen. I want to know new revenue, but I want staff to do the work. Well, if you want no new revenue, I think you should be able to tell us what exactly do you want us to cut to make sure we get to that no new revenue. And I had another question about, I think, David, it was brought up that we may be the only city who has not adapted the no new revenue tax rate. And I know you did a presentation about 2 weeks ago that I appreciate the mayor bringing forth. And some of the cities who got that new revenue is completely different in size of us.
I think we shared with you both the top 10 cities in the Metroplex and the top 10 cities in Texas. And of the top 10 cities in Texas, there's only one city that's adopting a no new revenue tax rate. I think that's El Paso. And of the Metroplex, was there any adopting a no new revenue? I don't think there was one adopting one. No, top 10 cities in the Metroplex. I didn't go to Keller. But just the top 10 cities, the largest 10 cities, nobody's doing a no new revenue tax rate. I don't believe in the Metroplex. And then again, of all the top 10 cities in the state, it was only the city of El Paso, and I don't know if they adopted that yet.
Thank you. And so I appreciate what we have done and where we are. I think there's a lot of work that we can do to in the future, but I will be supporting this tax rate that the city manager has offered the city of Fort Worth.
Councilman Martinez, followed by Councilmember Hill.
Just want to reiterate my thanks to David and staff for putting the budget together. But I will be supporting the proposed tax rate and the budget, because time, after speaking with neighbors and at different meetings, there are three top issues that are always brought up: public safety, infrastructure, and homelessness. And this budget will address those issues with a lot of other great things that are included. Improved city services. My district has 3 well, 4 police department divisions, and 3 of those are understaffed. So it's predominantly understaffed, and I believe that this tax rate will definitely help to bring in more police department to reduce that, those response times that are critical in District 11 and throughout the city. So that is why I will be supporting this tax rate.
Councilmember Hill?
I did want to publicly thank city staff. Thank you for your time and effort going into this budget. I know it's been said time and time again this evening, but I don't think we can say it enough. I appreciate the time that you've gone out to the public meetings and answered questions. And thank you to all the citizens that actually showed up to these meetings. There were several that I had one person show up. And so it is difficult to come tonight and hear a bunch of disgruntled taxpayers and citizens when they didn't come to the public meetings and participate in the process. Because y'all really have done a great job. And I know I asked a lot of tough questions, and I asked for an itemized budget, and I got it. And I'm very, very appreciative to that. I think it's important to note that this is the lowest property tax rate we've seen in the city of Fort Worth for 30 years. And I'm really proud that we're supporting our police department and our fire department. And then I know I'm reiterating everything that's been said already, but to be able to take care of the infrastructure needs that we have in the city. I know District 7, the infrastructure needs are vast. We continue to grow, we continue to have development, and I'm proud to say that we are gonna have a lower property tax rate. I know not everybody's happy about it, but we're gonna meet the needs of the people for the Fort Worth we have today and the Fort Worth that we're gonna have for the future.
Thank you, Councilmember Hill. Ensuring other council members need to speak. As a reminder, we have an alternative motion on the floor. We'll vote on it first before we go back to Councilmember Blaylock's proposal for a no new revenue tax rate. I believe this tax rate in this budget as proposed is worth it for a variety of reasons that have already been said. First, I refuse to sacrifice 1 penny of public safety dollars because it's the fundamental responsibility we have as a government. Number 2 is we cannot weaken our future bond capacity to build out infrastructure. If you want to talk about that more with me, I'm happy to do it. It's a very complex process. In fact, we actually turn in 2 worksheets to the comptroller's office when it really comes to performing our budget tax rate. Our budget office does an excellent job. Number 3 is we cannot fail to set up this city for the growth that it's experiencing. We are growing at a clip 4 times the city of Austin, 4 times. And many of you have come to this public hearing before and complained about cities like Austin and homelessness and traffic and lack of police. We're going to ensure that the city of Fort Worth is set up for success into the future. And for all those reasons that have already been iterated this evening, I fully support the budget and I support the tax rate, which is a historic 30-year reduction we haven't seen in the city of Fort Worth. And I appreciate the city staff and my fellow colleagues for getting us to this point. Councilman Flores has a motion on the floor. Do we have a second, council? Motion and a second?
Is Carlos' motion
To-
the original?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The proposed tax rate as published. I've got 2. Elizabeth, go ahead, Elizabeth. You're good. Okay. I've got 2 yays, was from Councilmember Bivens and Beck. Motion carries. That means that Councilmember Blaylock's motion fails, correct? Okay, perfect. Okay, next item.
Next item is Resolution 23-0595.
Got a motion and a second. We do have 2 speakers on this item, council. First is Adrian Smith by phone, followed by Robert Bucher. Robert here in person. You want to come on down first, and then we'll get Adrian on the phone.
I think I was supposed to speak on the previous one. I think I might have got those mixed up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trevor. It did show up on this item. I had asked earlier, I apologize, I could have moved you over. Would you like to continue to speak? You're welcome to if you'd like to.
Yes, Tarrant County Commissioners Court today, tax rate of 0.1945 per 100 in value. The no new revenue tape will decrease levy by $28,703,388, 5%, which was approved today. It's kind of wild that a budget that they have and all that they deal with, that they were able to do it, but we can't do it here. That's just wild to me. The issue is no new revenue tax rate was 0.63 0.57 per 100. This year's voter-approved tax rate, 0.7639 per 100, which was proposed by the taxpayers, but y'all had just done the 0.63. Maintenance, operations, and debt from the Tarrant County Commissioners Court is 0.183 cents per 100. When it all comes down, they will have approximately 543,360,000 net tax revenue for the district, and that's to include the hospital and all that, and they were able to do that, and that's a substantial amount, but we can't do it here for this little smaller section of Fort Worth that we have. It's absolutely wild that we couldn't do it. So we just continue to just roll it down to the taxpayers and continue to step on us when we could have done way, way more, and we do have a lot of top-heavy administration here. I mean, if I had a lot of scandals, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be making $300,000 a year. I think I'd be getting less, or if not fired, at any job that I've ever been at. Thank you.
Adrian Smith by phone.
Mr. Smith?
Hung up. Council, that's the last of our speakers. I believe you had a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? If not, please vote. Oh, who wants to make the motion? Councilmember, anybody? No. No. Sure. Yep.
This is statutorily required because the rate that you all adopted will bring in more revenue than last year. This is just a statutory requirement.
So can I have a motion? I've got a motion from Councilmember Nettles. Need a second? Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. I've got 2 yays, 1 from Bivens and 1 from Beck. Motion carries. Council, is that the last of our items? No, we have 2 MNCs. These are both related to meet and confer.
Yes, the first one is 23-0783.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Got 2 yays from Bivens and Beck. Motion carries.
Next MNC is MNC 23-0784.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Beck and Bivens are yes. Motion carries. Ron, am I correct? That's the last of our items on this agenda?
Yes.
Thank you, council. This meeting is adjourned. If you'll hold on just a moment for those that came for public comment, I'll call us. Just give us a minute to break and we'll come back together.
To your public comment meeting. Before Councilmember Flores calls the meeting to order, we ask that you please turn off electronic devices. For those of you who have requested to speak, there are two podiums located in the chamber. The podium in the back is for individuals with mobility concerns. We ask that all of the speakers step forward to the front podium. Each podium has a countdown clock located to the speaker's right that will indicate how much time is remaining. When you have 30 seconds left, a bell will sound. When your time has ended, the bell will sound a second time, indicating your time has ended. Before you begin your comments, please state your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I now call the meeting to order.
Tonight's invocation will be provided by Reverend Dr. Shannon Michael, Fort Worth University Christian Church. Please stand for the pledge, for the invocation and the pledges of allegiance.
And that should be First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ.
Apologize.
No worries. I'm not worried about it, they might be. May these words center and support your work this evening and the days to come. As you discuss, deliberate, and debate, may you be mindful that you hold the threads of the weave of we the people. By your decisions, you form the fabric of our social connections. By the power of both your actions and your inaction, you strengthen or diminish the bonds of our togetherness. Silence in the face of oppression will always benefit the bully and never the bullied. Silence from the powerful is the annihilation of the vulnerable. Non-action is not nonviolence. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the fruit from the well-tended tree of justice. Tend our weave well. Be cautious and suspicious of the harmful invocation to so-called unity, rooted in a conformity to the majority that erases the minority. Tend the whole cloth of our community. See our differences and celebrate our distinctiveness. Welcome the threads of diversity. Defend the dignity of everyone, erase no one. Hold safe the stories that may not be your journey, but are held within the bodies of our community. See trans folk and queer kin. Offer hospitality to the newly arrived and walk with the well-aged. Guard the future of our young by protecting them from hateful rhetoric. Break the soul-wounding patterns of patriarchy and misogyny. Support the unhoused, the hungry, the infirmed, and addicted, so that their threads may be darned and mended back into our communal cloth. May you act in the courage and stand with the commitment our deepest hopes deserve, so that the weave of we the people may be a blanket, a tapestry of mercy and compassion, of freedom and inclusion, held fast and held safe by all. Amen.
Amen.
Consideration of minutes from the August 22nd council meeting, the August 24th budget work session, the August 29th work session and public comment meeting, and the September 7th budget work session.
Okay, we're all considering these items together, so I'm asking for a motion and a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor indicate by voting when the button comes up. There we go. Is my screen hung up there, Michael, or was it? All right. Okay, yeah, put a stand in there. Okay. Did you take care of that, Catherine, on Jared's screen? All right, motion passes. Ron, call the first speaker,
Okay.
please.
We are now at public comments. The first speaker is Susan McKenzie.
Ms. McKenzie, are you here?
Okay. I'll call the next speaker, George Childs.
Mr. Childs?
My name is George Vernon Childs. I live in District 11. I want to make it as clear can be that the only reason for my being here is what I consider to be the vivid disparity between the reaction of council to Adrian's remarks to city staff in general on August 22nd and the total lack of reaction to another speaker's remarks to the city attorney by first name on August 29th. This was the latest and I hope the last deployment of what I think of as the RDM, or Rules Don't Matter doctrine. On February 8, 2022, a speaker was allowed to go off topic to advocate for increased compensation for guess who? On June 14, 2022, representatives of Hillwood were invited to speak in direct contradiction to a speaker who had followed all the rules when Hillwood had followed exactly none. Ross Perot Jr. had previously donated $10,000 to the campaign of the person who has the duty to see that all the rules for speakers are followed. Since this time, there were no obvious financial interests jumping up and down and screaming. I suggest that the answer to council's favor's duty can be found in the same speaker's remarks here on March 7th, 2023, beginning at 12 minutes, 27 seconds, ending at 14 minutes, 6 seconds. Distillation of this shows council being assured that they're not obliged to listen to those who complain. In other words, a direct attack on the petition for redress of grievances clause of the First Amendment. Was this just an inadvertent lapse by the speaker? Well, previous to this, at 12 minutes, 25 seconds, he stated, quote, "If you want to peg someone and understand where they're coming from, listen to what they say," unquote. Sage advice indeed. To complete this parody, the speaker's subject on August 29th was decorum. Wow, dude. If irony in this room was water vapor, I wouldn't be able to see council from here. I take absolutely no pleasure in saying that some council members will finally embrace any public comment supporting the state of mind that any remarks they don't like can fall on deaf ears. To quote a council member on June 28, 2022 at 15 minutes, 55 seconds, then there will be no mention of any violation, much less point of order, resounding yea into the very vault of the stratosphere.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. Next speaker, Donnell Ballard.
Good evening. I'm Donnell Ballard, residing in the Arlington Heights area. I am here today because I checked out the reports, the news reports this week, with talking about the gun violence in TCU area. So what I'm saying to Manny Parker and Chris Nettles, you guys are always talking about we seeking attention. We're not here to seek attention. We're here. United My Justice, when we come to talk about the gun violence, to bring awareness to it. I would be interested in seeing what Jerry got to say, meet with Jerry to find out what's going on, because we talk about the gun violence happening in TCU area, but instead of making a resolution of what's going on in TCU, let's do a resolution that's going to benefit the whole entire city. Instead of just doing a benefit of the West 7th Street district, I understand we got a lot of killing, a lot of shootings going on, but to be honest with you, we got shootings and killing going on all over the city. It ain't just going on in TCU area. But see how you made it, Park, and I understand because it happened in your backyard right there close to you, but we need to focus on the whole entire city. If we focus on the whole entire city, stopping the gun violence in the whole city, we won't have to worry about it going into these little neighborhoods like TCU area or West 7th Street if we focus on that. So all that money that you guys are getting that you said is going to be for the police, let's make sure we do something. And then let's talk about this also. We got these young people. We need to come up with better programs. The programs you guys are talking about, I don't think it's working. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this much killing going on. God knows I hate to see what's going to happen next year. If we don't get it resolved now, it's going to get worse. And I told you this 2 years ago, Mayor Parker, when me and United My Justice met with you the first 3 days of you being in office, that we needed to talk about the gun violence. But I heard Chris Nettles telling me, oh no, you guys preach the same thing. Well, we're going to continue to preach until we get this gun, until we figure out how we're going to get you guys to figure out. We're not getting paid for it. So you guys, everybody getting the CCP money, we're not getting nothing out of it. So we don't have the money. You guys got the money to be able to really focus on getting this gun violence down. You already said in this budget that you was going to, y'all pass this bill. So y'all make sure y'all put some of that money in, all this money y'all get to be able to help stop the gun violence in Woodward. That's all I'm saying. And I'm polite tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Lizzie Bayou.
Good evening, Council. My name is Lizzie Bu, and I'm here to address the gun violence that's going on in our city. As many of you know, United My Justice has been fighting against the gun violence since before Maddie Parker came into office. But our fight just got really close to home for me because on September 2nd, my friend Trenton Johnson was shot down in District 8 at Berry and Riverside. You see, but I live in District 5, and in June, a 12-year-old little boy was gunned down on Brentwood Stair. And our city leadership mocked us in the media, stating that the violent crime has actually decreased 13%. They came out and said this in a statement in the Star-Telegram. But I am here to say that our city leadership does not care about the Black community. Trenton Johnson had a name. He has a name. And I'm here to tell you that he is alive and well after being shot 3 times, once in the neck, once in the chest, and once in the hip. And he's alive because we prayed for him. But I'm here to say that his mother has came out and made a statement. She wants you guys to know that Trent Johnson's life matters too, and so do all the other lives in the Black community. I'm here to urge our leadership to enact changes in the entire community and not just in West 7th Street. Our kids are in crisis. Prevention is key. We need real programs to keep these kids away from the gun violence. We are asking that our leadership acknowledge the problem. America's most beloved founding father, George Washington, said in his farewell address, "And everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree and feel safe in the nation we've made." But you all know as well as I do that he was not talking about the Black community. And here in 2023, the Fort Worth City leadership does not care about the Black community. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Ms. Bayou. Jim DeLong.
Good evening, I'm Jim DeLong. Boy, what a long day you guys have had today, huh? It's been like nonstop. I thank you for your commitment to our city and your heart to always try to do what's right. I'm gonna digress from talking about a red ball tonight because I was at the work session and I listened to the program and the presentation on reading. A lot was said there and some very startling, staggering statistics, but there was an elephant in the room that wasn't addressed. And the elephant is our education system. Our education system is run by educators. You know, they have doctorate degrees and many degrees, and they've studied education, and we have an education system where they can't even teach our kids to read. Yes, the parents need to be more involved and be more aware. But my God, we should be able to trust our teachers to teach our kids to read. There's a lot of other issues going on in our school districts that have gotten major national attention. But what about teaching our kids to read? We have an independent school district. They're not accountable to anybody. Who are they accountable to keep a standard of education level? I think some things need to change. I think that it would behoove us to hold their feet to the fire. If they're not doing the job, then they need to be removed from the job just like anybody else. Every 2 years, you all get voted on. And sometimes people will vote a person out because they don't think they're doing the job. We've had an education system that's gone on for decades. I'm a former school administrator. I ran a school. I was a principal. And I love the kids. But I maintained accountability with the teachers. We need a school district that will run education. they're not doing a good job. If kids aren't learning they can't read at a third grade level, and this has gone on for decades and decades, I don't know what you guys can do about it. That's up for grabs. But I just wanted to mention, there was an elephant in the room today, and it's the school districts who are not doing their job, and something needs to be done to hold their feet to the fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeLong. Next speaker, Adrian Smith.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith?
Adrian Smith, Adrian Smith, I am one with the people. When people show you who they are, believe them. Maya Angelou. June 3rd, 2023, a day of celebration turned into a night of tragedy. 3 innocent lives lost to senseless violence. Paul Willis, 18, Cynthia Santos, 22, Gabriela Navarrete, 19. Darren Rutherford, 36, was injured while protecting his daughter from said violence. Countless other lives forever changed by it. July 4th, 2023. Instead of Mayor Maddie Parker denouncing the tragedy of July 3rd, 2023, herself as well as Chief Neil Noakes, Fort Worth Police Department, decided for photo ops in front of the media. Fast forward, September 1st, 2023, another innocent life lost to senseless violence. Wes Smith, 21, a student of TCU University. And I quote, "Any innocent life taken in our city is one too many. Wes' murder struck a different chord with me, not only because I knew Wes personally, but also because it took place in one of Fort Worth's most successful entertainment districts, created with city planning. You cannot always protect people from evil, but I'm determined more than ever to make Fort Worth safer for everyone." And that is a quote from your mayor, Maddie Parker. Again, when people show you who they are, believe them. Again, the mayor, aware that she would face backlash as it relates to the recent council initiative, as it relates to 7th Street and her open statement regarding the passing of the TCU student, she ducked out of council again. How befitting. Reminds me of several months ago when her past came up and she ducked out she ran to the back. But anyway, I digress for that. Mayor Maddie Parker, my expectations of you are nothing more than what you've already shown me. Controlling, over-emotional, denier of truth, high-minded, and condescending. To Chris Nettles, Jeanette Martinez, Mr. Williams, Ms. Bivens, and Mr. Flores, your districts are the districts that are highly affected by violence as it relates to gun violence, etc. You all should be the loudest voices on any initiatives as it relates to change that needs to happen as we address the ongoing violence that plagues our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next speaker, Manuel Mata. Is Mr. Mata here? Did he leave? There he is.
Hello, the city of Fort Worth. My name is Manuel Mata, and I live in District 11. And my public comment is towards a solution of sorts, right? So the issue is with money for the police officers. Well, I have a couple suggestions. Why don't y'all stop allowing police officers to take their cars home or have them in their off-duty jobs? Because there's an issue within the police department where they don't have enough vehicles to have officers in them. Because you have police officers that get off duty and take their car, the police car, to their off-duty job, which forces them into overtime where they're paid 3 different ways: their current job, overtime and the job that's paying them to be there at their off-duty job. And I tried to explain this, I have it on video, and this officer conspired with Wells Fargo Bank to trespass me illegally. And on the video that I got of his body camera, he states, there's nothing illegal that he's doing. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing, but could you help us trespass him? Because he lied and said, I knew his schedule. Officers are not that important to me. I'm more interested in their internal affairs complaints than their job schedule. But that's what this officer stated. The supervisor came on the scene, the same thing. Oh, you're the one that harassed Sergeant Young and Hoffman, the ones that ran me over after they trespassed me from QT. This is how I started filming police officers, Fort Worth, because Officer Hoffman, and his supervisor, Sergeant Young, conspired to get me trespassed from QT after they already addressed the fact that I didn't have a light on my bike. Sergeant Young tried to hit me. I did not stop because I was not under arrest. And then Officer Hoffman turned off his headlights, his emergency lights, and ran me over. They still have the bike that he ran me over in police property right now that they refused to give back to me. The case was dismissed.
Mr. Motti, you have 30 seconds left, and please get back on point. You wanted to talk about the budget and your suggestions.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right, my bad. Yeah, stop letting them take their cars. Stop chasing stolen cars when you have a flock camera program that'll literally follow them to wherever they stop and leave. And it also identifies the suspects that are in the car. That way, innocent people don't lose their life because the officer is determined to pull over a stolen car that is now worthless to the owner.
Thank you, Mr. Motta. Next speaker, Mike C. Okay, I think he left, all right. Next speaker, Aaron James. You already spoke? Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. Carolyn Rodriguez. Okay. Okay. Mr. James, did you speak earlier?
I did speak earlier, I did. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
What? You know, there's a lot to be said as far as budget cuts, you know, and some of the things that folks mentioned here tonight. I think that we are all trimming the fat, and the city could do a better job of that as well. You guys see the departments, y'all have the notebooks, the data, much better than we do. One of the questions that I do have for you is if y'all do increase the tax rate, a question was posed about response times and how that will affect. How long will it be before you have that data available if the response times have been increased because you're citing a budget increase necessary in order to affect the response times? So that's my question for you guys, and thanks.
Thank you, Mr. James. Now, Carolyn Rodriguez.
So, Carolina, I'm in Elizabeth Beck's district. I just want to talk to you about maybe thinking about changing the leadership in the police department because it's obviously not working well. I wanted to finish my story about the little boy named JoJo real quick. JoJo was ran over on Berry Street hit and run, and the police officers could not find out who did it. But it wasn't that hard for the mom to find out who did it because she went over and got all the rings, the videos, and all the videos from the stores. She asked the people in the store and the people at their houses, did the police come over and ask for your videos? And they didn't. So they found out who the guy was, found out where he lived, and they had a 200-man protest over there that didn't make the newspaper and didn't make the news. I was in the protest too. So there was 200 people there for the police department to arrest that man that did the hit and run. The next thing I want to talk to you about is, as far as changing the leadership too, is making sure you guys have enough money in your budget to pay off all of these lawsuits. Because the Brandon Zapata case is fixing to come up pretty quick here. Brandon Zapata was the kid that had the asthma attack at the mall, the town center mall. And the two officers, instead of getting him medical treatment, decided that the best bet would be to sit for 18 minutes on his neck and his back while he had his asthma attack. They thought he was having a mental breakdown, but the mom just got the toxicology report back 2 days ago, and it was clear. He had no drugs in his system. He was just dying because he couldn't breathe. And they made it go a little bit quicker for him since they sat on him and made it go really fast that way. So Brandon Zapata's family is going to be suing y'all, so I hope y'all have enough money for that. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. David Martinez. I think he just stepped out. The other, Marshall's, I think he went that way. So, okay, there he is.
Y'all call David Martinez, right? Just making sure. She said Martinez. Anyways, all right. So I wanted to talk about part two, what I said about Carter Park. I'm vice president of the neighborhood association that we got started. The reason we got started was because of the crime and the, I don't know, we call them transients because not all of them are homeless. Some of them are, almost all of them that are still there are the drug addicts and stuff like that. What we're facing is we're facing a federal matter. The reason why it's federal matter because we have international gangs like MS-13, we have human traffickers, we have prostitution, sex slaves, we have it all in Carter Park, in District 11 off the freeway, and District 8 and District 9. Yes, we have 3 districts, 8, 9, and 11. And thanks to Councilwoman Martinez helping us out, making us a priority. Many of the officers go up there and do their job, but as soon as they arrest somebody, then more come in. We have videos, we have surveillance, evidence, and the reason why we're talking about bringing the federal government in this is because of all the things that are happening, the prostitution, the drugs, the trafficking, everything. And if y'all know, I-35 is the Western Hemisphere corridor of drugs and human trafficking, which is a big problem in the United States, and a lot of it comes through Carter Park. And we see the effects to the neighborhood. Our neighborhood association president is a female, and she's been attacked twice in retaliation for calling the police. The police showed up and asked her if she knew the names of her assailant or the person that attacked her, and rather, she didn't stop and say, hey, what's your name? What's your name? You know, no, she got out of there. She had her little boy with her. So these are the things that are happening right now, and the people who have these nuisance abatement, like Rockies on Hemp Hill Seminary, like Days Inn, the motel, people who fit the description of what we were doing with on 9/11. And so,
Ms. Martinez, you have 30 seconds left, and I think you have written here tax comments to that, please.
well, this comes with it. The tax increases. This all ties in together with the,
Go ahead,
with
sir.
the law enforcement.
Okay, go ahead.
Am I allowed to talk?
We'll give you a few seconds. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry I didn't word it the way
We'll give you a few
like it.
seconds, sir. Go ahead.
No, sir, you too. You interrupted me. I didn't interrupt you. So I just wanted to say that. Like, you come at me hostile. Well, I mean, I'm over here just trying to say what's going on.
Not at all, sir.
Because not everybody knows this. People don't know what's going on over here. They don't see it. So now you got me off topic. Let me get back over here. So what the taxes that are going on, do I get my time?
Yes, sir.
That you took from me?
You have a few extra seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, the reason why I'm talking about the taxes is I'm not against law enforcement, I'm not against the fire department and all that stuff. We needed all those things. The things that I'm talking about on the taxes, the increase, is the increases doesn't go a certain way. Well, I mean, I have multiple houses and I should be living it up, but instead, because of my taxes and because of other things that are going on, I'm not living where I'm supposed to be living. So if it's hard for me, I can just imagine people who don't have homes or are paying rent and living check to check. So I empathize with them. And so I'm thinking that we can do something better instead of divulging all that money into the homeless situation and building these little tiny boxes. Instead, we can educate our children and provide a better future and give them job training, things like that like they need, better jobs, higher paying jobs. I think that's the solution to deal with the rent crisis and things like that. And maybe not advertise to come here until we settle what we got going on here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Next speaker, James Smith.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is James Smith. I live in District 8. As you all are aware, we're about to approach the 4-year anniversary of the death of Tatiana Jefferson. 4 years. 4 years. And we're still awaiting accountability. What is accountability? What is accountability? We haven't got it. I invited you all to the Tay Day festivities, October 13th, 14th, 15th. I'd like to see you there. Show your support to the families, show your support to the neighborhood. We haven't forgotten her. We're not going to forget her, and neither will Fort Worth. I don't want to be redundant coming down here saying her name, but her name is important, and that's why I'm here. In the city of Fort Worth, 4 years we're talking. If I stop to evaluate the way certain people or minorities or marginalized people are treated in the city, they're treated differently. And I believe you guys know that. I don't have to tell you that. They're treated differently. When is change going to come? I pay taxes, and yes, the taxes are going up, and yes, my budget is stringent. And you know what people like me have to do when you sit down at the table and the bills are not matching the budget? You look at your wall, and you think about taking your TV off the wall to go to a pawn shop to pawn it to pay a bill. And guess what? When the next bill cycle comes, you have that same quandary because the TV's in the pawn shop, so you can't pawn that because it's already gone. You can't go get it because it's not in the budget. So you lose. I was scheduled to come here at 5 o'clock to speak on the budget, but I knew you were going to pass it, so I didn't want, that was a redundant thing for me to do, to come here at 5 o'clock to talk on something that you're going to pass anyway. But I looked at the budget. I didn't go through it thoroughly, but I glanced at it enough to know that some of those things can be shaved to other things. You can transfer some things to other things. I'm gonna call it a balanced budget. The budget you guys just passed, it's not balanced. And if you give the police department, and I'm not down in the police department because I'm not a defund the police person myself, but if you fund this entity, let's make sure they're following policy and procedures. And maybe I won't lose another neighbor. Accountability for Tatiana Jefferson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Joe Palmer.
Thank you. Joe Palmer, I'd like to first say thank you for being so attentive. I've never been to a local government meeting where so many faces were looking directly at the speakers. There's a lot of abuse. It's a huge city, so I don't envy you the position you're in. The great economist Milton Friedman talks about the 4 ways you can spend money. You can spend your own money on yourself. You can spend your own money on somebody else. You can spend somebody else's money on yourself. That's the best kind. Or you can spend other people's money on other people. And that's the most dangerous kind because you don't fully appreciate that money because you didn't work hard to earn it. It was given to you. And you're not fully on the hook. You don't bear the brunt of the cost or the pain if and when that money is wasted. And unfortunately, that's what we do in local government. There's an internal fight that goes on. I know that you're aware of this, on whether or not to say yes or no to some expenditure. But you have to recognize that what's not going on enough, I believe, in your thoughts, is the recognition that this money was not earned by you, that this money was gathered under threat of violence. This is accurate because if you don't pay your property taxes, what happens? Just follow it to the end. And nobody wants to go there, but that's ultimately what we're talking about. That's why people pay. People don't pay the property taxes because they feel warm feelings about what you're doing and they believe in the city and all these, impassioned emotional statements that we heard tonight. They pay because if they don't pay, they'll lose their home, or the city will file suit against them, or the school district. So it was said that, nobody's come to see me, nobody's come to meetings all year long to tell me about things they want to cut. But you know what I don't hear? I don't hear local elected officials responding to people when people say, you know what, I want you to build me this, or I want you to build me that. I don't hear city council members responding and saying, that's fine, but it's going to cost this, and it's going to make your property taxes go up, and you're going to have to hawk your TV at the pawn shop maybe. I mean, we're not talking about me, we're talking about people I know, but there's people in this city that are dirt poor. You drive through their neighborhoods, and I don't know how they live. Multiple kids, school taxes going up, can't get their kid to school on time. It's rough. I don't know what to say. I will just leave you with a question. If this economic environment is not one that will motivate you to cut taxes, to cut the tax rate and cut the budget, I would like you to just think later, privately, what would the economy need to look like in the future for you to consider making some cuts? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Elba Camacho.
Council members, I'd like to thank Mr. Blaylock and Mr. Crane for voting no on the taxation without representation. We have questions, yet you shame people who want to be informed. You belittle people and cut people off at the microphone, even removing people and banning or trespassing them. A lot of people have showed up today concerned about the infamous 5-letter word you all promised before you run to lower. Taxes, T-A-X-E-S, bold words. Fort Worth has become an apartment-infested city, mostly caused by rezoning. You all are rezoning Nazis. You vote all day approving, shattering homes, businesses, livelihoods. Our city is neglected by trash, cracked roads, holes in our highways and streets. That didn't happen overnight. It's been in the works. So this new taxation you guys are trying to implement, what have you guys been doing with our money? Crime is on the rise as well. Our mayor takes a part-time job. What's up with that? Her focus should be 100% on her city. She's not doing that. You all have failed the city of Fort Worth, and I demand you keep taxes, and I was gonna say this before, but I didn't make it in time, taxes below the level. And just a reminder, our Constitution doesn't have a limit of time of any kind when it comes to speaking. A political speech receives the greatest protection. The court has stated that the ability to criticize the government and government officials is central to the meaning of our First Amendment. You guys violate it and continue to violate it. And just to remember, our First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And if there's any changes on that, the U.S. Supreme Court decides, not you guys, they do. So quit it, cut it out. It's we the people, not you the government. You guys made promises, all of y'all made promises to cut our taxes when you guys ran. So this is on you.
Thank you, Ms. Camacho. And That's the end of our speakers. Meeting adjourned.